My name is Dorothy Hayes. I'm 68 years old, and I live at 1847 Maple Street in Springfield, Illinois.
Before we continue, comment where you're watching from and subscribe to the channel. We'd love to see how far our stories are reaching.
What I'm about to tell you happened exactly 11 months ago, and I'm only now finding the courage to write it down. Maybe my story will help other women see the signs I ignored for so long. The dress took me 3 months to make. I bought the fabric at Henderson's downtown. Pale blue cotton with tiny white flowers. $340 I'd saved from my part-time work at the library. Every night after dinner, I sat at my old Singer sewing machine in the basement, the one that still smelled like my mother's perfume, even though she'd been gone 20 years. I stitched every seam by hand because the machine's motor was dying, and I couldn't afford to fix it. I wanted to look beautiful for Harold. Even though he'd been dead a year, I wanted to honor our 50 years together. The family had organized this anniversary party. Michael, my son, insisted on it. "Mom, Dad would have wanted us to celebrate," he'd said over the phone, his voice warm in that way that used to make me feel like the luckiest mother alive. I should have known something was wrong when Brenda offered to help with the planning. My daughter-in-law had never offered to help with anything in the 19 years she'd been married to Michael. But I was so grateful, so stupidly grateful, that someone cared enough to take the burden off my shoulders. "Just show up and look pretty, Dorothy," she'd said with that smile that never reached her eyes. "We'll handle everything." The Golden Memories Hall smelled like cheap wine and wilting carnations when I arrived that Saturday afternoon. 80 guests, neighbors, old friends from church, Harold's co-workers from the factory where he'd worked for 30 years, gold balloons sagging against the beige walls, a crooked banner reading 50 years of love in glittery letters that were already peeling off. I wore my blue dress. I'd even bought new shoes, $45 at Walmart, white flats that pinched my toes but looked elegant. I'd done my hair myself, curling it with hot rollers I'd borrowed from my neighbor, Mrs. Chen. I felt pretty for the first time since Harold's funeral. Michael met me at the door. He was wearing a gray suit I didn't recognize. Probably something Brenda bought him with money I didn't know they had. He kissed my cheek quickly, his cologne overwhelming. "You look nice, Mom," he said, but his eyes were already scanning the room behind me. That's when I saw her. Patricia, my younger sister, was standing near the punch bowl wearing a black dress that cost more than my monthly grocery budget. She was laughing with Brenda, both of them holding champagne flutes, their heads tilted together like conspirators. Patricia hadn't spoken to me in 6 months, not since Harold's funeral, where she'd cried harder than I had. I'd thought it was grief. I walked through the crowd, accepting hugs and condolences that still came even a year after Harold's death. "He was such a good man," Mrs. Patterson from church said, squeezing my hand. "You two were so lucky to have each other." Lucky. The word tasted like rust in my mouth. The speeches started around 3 p.m. Michael stood at the microphone, handsome in his gray suit, talking about his parents' legendary love story. He told the story of how Harold proposed to me in 1974, on one knee in the spring rain outside my parents' house, how I'd said yes before he even finished asking, how we'd built a life together on nothing but love and determination. Every word was true, and every word was a lie. Then Brenda took the microphone. She wore a tight red dress that looked obscene next to my homemade cotton one. "I want to toast the woman who taught me what marriage really means," she said, raising her glass toward me. The room went quiet. "Dorothy has sacrificed so much for this family. She worked 3 jobs to pay for Michael's college. She sold her mother's jewelry to pay off his credit cards. She even worked through pneumonia to buy him a car," people murmured sympathetically. I felt my face burn. I didn't want my sacrifices announced like achievements. I'd done what any mother would do. "But you know what they say," Brenda continued, her smile sharpening. "Sometimes people give so much, they forget to take care of themselves." She walked toward me through the crowd, her heels clicking on the cheap carpet. "Dorothy, honey, when was the last time you bought yourself something nice?" My throat closed. Everyone was staring. "That dress," Brenda said, touching the shoulder of my blue cotton dress. "Did you make this yourself?" I nodded, unable to speak. "How sweet," she cooed. "How very thrifty." Her fingers gripped the fabric, I felt the seam strain. "The thing about homemade clothes," Brenda said, her voice loud enough for everyone to hear, "is they're never quite as strong as the real thing." She pulled. The sound of tearing fabric echoed through the silent hall like a scream. The shoulder seam gave way first, then the side, then the entire sleeve separated from the bodice. I stood there in my white slip, 3 months of work hanging in shreds around me, while 80 people stared. Someone laughed, then another, then the whole room filled with laughter. "Now it matches the hag you really are," Brenda said sweetly, dropping the torn fabric at my feet. I looked at Michael, my son, my only child, the boy I'd raised alone after working myself to exhaustion. He was looking at the floor, his face red, but not from anger, from embarrassment. Of me. Patricia was laughing behind her champagne flute. Jessica and Brandon, my grandchildren, 19 and 17, old enough to know better, were filming on their phones. I bent down to pick up the torn pieces of my dress, my hands shaking so hard I could barely grasp the fabric. My glasses had fallen off somewhere. I crawled on the dirty carpet, searching for them, while the laughter continued above me like thunder. No one helped. I found my glasses under a chair, one lens cracked straight through the middle. I put them on anyway, seeing the world split in two, and gathered what was left of my dress in my arms. That's when I felt it. Something stiff in the torn pocket. An envelope. Yellowed with age, sealed with tape that had gone brittle. My name written on the front in Harold's handwriting. I stood up, clutching the envelope and my ruined dress, and walked out of the Golden Memories Hall. Behind me, someone turned up the music. The party continued as if I'd never been there at all. I drove home in my slip and broken glasses, the envelope burning against my chest like an accusation. At 1847 Maple Street, I sat at my kitchen table, the same table where Harold and I had shared thousands of meals, where Michael had done his homework as a boy, where I'd cried alone after the funeral. The yellow overhead light buzzed. The faucet dripped into the sink with a steady rhythm that sounded like a ticking clock. I opened the envelope. The letter was dated March 15, 2023, 3 days before Harold died. "My dearest Dorothy, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and I'm a coward for not telling you the truth while I could still look you in the eye. I've been unfaithful to you for 30 years. It started in 1994 and it never stopped. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But I need you to know, it was Patricia. It was always Patricia. She wanted what you had. She wanted me to leave you, but I couldn't. You were too good, Dorothy. You made life too easy. Why would I leave when you asked for nothing and gave everything? I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed you to know the truth. The life you thought we had was a lie. And Patricia knew. Michael knew. Everyone knew except you. I died a liar. You deserved better. Harold." The letter fell from my hands. 30 years. My sister. My husband. My son knew. Everyone knew except me. I sat in that kitchen until 3 a.m., staring at Harold's handwriting, at the confession that rewrote 50 years of my life. The house creaked around me. The same house Harold and I had bought in 1976. The house where I'd raised Michael, where I'd believed I was building something real. The yellow roses bushes in the backyard, the ones I'd planted in 1975 as a young bride, were visible through the window, ghostly in the moonlight. I'd watered them every summer for 50 years. They'd never missed a bloom. I wondered if they'd been lies too. The phone rang at dawn. It was Michael. "Mom, about yesterday. Brenda was just joking around. You know how she is? Don't take it personally." I hung up without answering. The dress pieces were still on the kitchen table, blue fabric soaked in the coffee I'd spilled in my shock. I picked up one torn sleeve and held it to my face. It still smelled like the basement, like my mother's perfume, like the 3 months I'd spent believing I was making something beautiful. I folded the pieces carefully and put them in a shoebox. Evidence. Not for a crime, but for something worse. For the moment when I realized my entire life had been performed for an audience that despised me. Harold's letter went in the box, too. I sealed it with packing tape and wrote on the lid in black marker, March 2024, the day I woke up. Outside, a car pulled into my driveway. Through the cracked lens of my glasses, I saw Brenda and Michael getting out, carrying papers in their hands. They were smiling. Chapter 2. The escalation focus. Discovery of family conspiracy. Pressure to sell inherited house. Flashbacks of sacrifices. They didn't knock. Brenda used her key, the one I'd given them 3 years ago for emergencies, and walked into my kitchen like she owned the place. Michael followed, carrying a brown leather folder that looked expensive. Too expensive for a man who'd called me 6 months ago begging for $800 to fix his transmission. "Mom, we need to talk," Michael said, not meeting my eyes. He looked tired, older than 45. When had the lines around his mouth gotten so deep? I was still wearing my slip. The torn dress pieces were scattered across the table next to Harold's letter. I grabbed a cardigan from the back of my chair and wrapped it around myself. "About yesterday," Michael started. "Get out," I said. Brenda laughed, that high, sharp sound that made my teeth hurt. "Dorothy, don't be dramatic. We drove all the way here to help you." She sat down at my table without being invited, pushing aside the dress pieces like they were garbage. Her red nails, fake, expensive, clicked against the Formica surface. "We've been thinking about your situation. This house is too big for one person. The maintenance alone must be killing you financially." My situation, as if I were a problem that needed solving. "The house is fine," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "Is it?" Brenda opened the folder. Inside were papers, lots of them, with legal letterhead and highlighted sections. "Property taxes went up 17% last year. Your roof is 23 years old. The furnace failed twice last winter. Michael had to come fix it both times." Michael shifted his weight, uncomfortable. "Mom, we're just worried." "We found a lovely senior living community," Brenda interrupted, sliding a glossy brochure across the table. "Meadowbrook Estates. They have activities, medical staff on site, prepared meals. You wouldn't have to worry about anything." I looked at the brochure. Smiling elderly people playing cards. A dining room that looked like a hospital cafeteria, starting at $2,800 per month. "I can't afford that," I said. "That's why we sell the house," Brenda said, her smile widening. "This property is worth at least $215,000. We sell it, put you in Meadowbrook, and there's plenty left over for—" She paused. "For your care. Long-term planning." My care. She meant their inheritance. I looked at Michael. Really looked at him. He was studying his shoes. Brown leather loafers I'd bought him for Christmas 2 years ago because Brenda said he needed professional shoes for client meetings. "Michael," I said quietly. "Look at me." He did, finally. His eyes were Harold's eyes, pale blue, weak. "Did you know?" I asked. "About your father and Patricia?" His face went white. Brenda's smile faltered. "I found a letter," I continued, picking up Harold's confession from the table. 30 years he was sleeping with my sister, and he said you knew. Everyone knew." Michael's mouth opened, closed, opened again. "Mom, it wasn't like that. I didn't know how to tell you. You were so happy. You thought what?" My voice cracked. "You thought I was too stupid to notice? Too pathetic to deserve the truth? We thought we were protecting you," he whispered. "Protecting me, by letting me live a lie for 30 years, by watching me take care of a man who betrayed me with my own sister, by letting me believe I had a family that loved me." Brenda cleared her throat, sensing she was losing control of the conversation. "This is exactly why we're concerned, Dorothy. You're clearly under a lot of emotional stress. Making major decisions right now wouldn't be wise. That's why we've taken the liberty of—" She pulled another paper from the folder. This one had signatures at the bottom. Official stamps. Legal language I couldn't quite read through my cracked glasses. "What is that?" I asked. "A sales contract," Brenda said smoothly. "We've already found a buyer. A young family, very nice. They're offering $208,000, which is fair given the condition of the property. All you need to do is sign, and we can start the process of getting you settled at Meadowbrook." "You already found a buyer?" The words came out slowly, like I was translating from a foreign language. You put my house up for sale without asking me? We used a power of attorney, Michael said quickly, his voice defensive now. Remember? You signed one 5 years ago when Dad was sick, just in case something happened and we needed to handle your affairs. I remembered. Harold had been in the hospital with pneumonia. Michael said it was just a precaution, something to make things easier if I couldn't make decisions. I'd signed it without reading it carefully because I'd been so scared Harold might die. That was 2019. Harold recovered. I'd forgotten all about it. That power of attorney is for medical decisions, I said, my lawyer brain. The one I'd developed from years of reading Harold's factory union contracts, kicking in. Not financial ones. Brenda's smile tightened. It's a general power of attorney, Dorothy. It covers everything. Our lawyer confirmed it's valid. Our lawyer. They already had a lawyer. You forged my signature, I said, understanding flooding through me cold and clear. We anticipated you might be difficult, Brenda said, standing up. She was taller than me, and she used it now, looming over my kitchen table like a hawk over a rabbit. Which is why we've documented your declining mental state. The incident yesterday, walking around in your underwear, causing a scene at your own anniversary party. Your neighbor, Mrs. Chen, told us you've been talking to yourself in the backyard, forgetting to pay bills. Mrs. Chen would never say that, but I realized it didn't matter. Brenda could say anything, and who would believe a confused old woman over a respectable young couple? You have 10 days to sign voluntarily, Brenda continued, tapping the contract with her red nail. After that, we go to court. And trust me, Dorothy, a judge will side with the family members who actually care about your well-being. She left the papers on my table like a threat. Michael lingered at the door. Mom, it's really for the best. You'll see. Then they were gone, and I was alone with the contract that would steal my home. I sat there for an hour, staring at the forged signature that almost looked like mine. They'd practiced. Brenda probably traced my real signature from old checks, perfected the loop of the D, the way my Y's drooped at the end. 10 days. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the paper. This house, 1847 Maple Street, was the only thing I had left that was truly mine. Harold and I had bought it in 1976 for $32,000, scraping together the down payment from his factory wages and my job as a secretary at the elementary school. Michael had taken his first steps in the living room. I'd planted those yellow roses the summer we moved in. Harold had died in the bedroom upstairs, holding my hand, whispering, "I'm sorry," over and over. I'd thought he meant sorry for leaving me. Now I knew better. The phone rang. I didn't answer. It rang 12 more times over the next hour. Finally, I unplugged it from the wall. I needed to think, to remember, to understand how I'd gotten here. The memories came in flashes. Uninvited. 1997. Michael's acceptance letter to Southern Illinois University. $9,000 per year for tuition. We didn't have it. Harold worked at the factory. I worked part-time at the school library. Michael had scholarships that covered half, but we were still $18,000 short for 4 years. I took 2 more jobs, night cleaning at the medical offices downtown, weekend shifts at the grocery store. I slept 4 hours a night for 4 years. I remember falling asleep standing up at the grocery checkout, my manager shaking my shoulder. "Mrs. Hayes, you need to go home." But I didn't go home. I went to the medical offices and scrubbed toilets until 2 a.m. Michael graduated with honors. At the ceremony, he thanked his parents' support. Harold sat next to me, clapping, his hand on my knee. I didn't know then that the hand touching me had been touching Patricia. 2003. Michael called from Kansas City crying. He'd maxed out 3 credit cards, $12,000 in debt. Some bad investments, he said. Some bad luck. He was going to lose his apartment. I sold my mother's jewelry. The diamond necklace she'd worn at her own wedding. The sapphire ring she'd left me when she died in 1989. I'd promised myself I'd give them to Michael's wife someday, but Brenda didn't need my mother's old jewelry. She needed $12,000. I got $12,000. Michael paid off his cards. He never mentioned it again. On my birthday that year, he sent me a $15 Applebee's gift card. 2011. The car. Michael's Honda had died, and he needed reliable transportation for a new sales job. $8,500 for a used Ford Focus. He was sure this job would be the one that changed everything. I had pneumonia. I could barely breathe. But the night cleaning job paid $85 per shift, and I needed 60 shifts to make $5,100 for the down payment. The rest, I borrowed against the house. I worked every night for 3 weeks, coughing so hard I tasted blood. Mrs. Patterson from church found me collapsed in the parking lot after my shift one night and drove me to the emergency room. "You could have died," the doctor said. But Michael needed that car. He got the sales job. He kept it for 8 months before getting fired for missing quotas. The numbers scrolled through my head like an autopsy report. $38,000 for college, $12,000 for credit card debt, $8,500 for the car, $15,000 over the years for rent emergencies, hospital bills, car insurance, Christmas gifts for the grandchildren I barely saw, $73,500. $73,000 I'd scraped together from night shifts and sold heirlooms and borrowed against this house. This house they now wanted to take from me. The sun was setting when I finally stood up from the kitchen table. My legs were stiff. My back ached. I was 68 years old, and I'd spent 50 of those years giving everything to people who saw me as nothing. The contract sat on the table, Brenda's red nail polish smudged on one corner. 10 days. I picked up the phone, still unplugged, and stared at it. I needed help. I needed a lawyer. I needed money. And then I remembered Harold's life insurance, the small policy from the factory union. I'd put it in a savings account after he died, too depressed to think about money. $18,000. Not enough to live on, but enough to fight back. I also remembered something else. 6 months before Harold died, he'd told me he'd made arrangements for my future. I'd been too busy caring for him to ask questions. But there was a file in his desk drawer labeled Emergency Fund, Dorothy only. I'd never opened it. I went to Harold's office, the spare bedroom where he'd kept his union papers and tax returns. The desk was dusty. I hadn't been in here since the funeral. The file was exactly where I remembered, stuffed in the back of the bottom drawer under years of old W-2 forms. Inside, stock certificates, blue chip companies, AT&T, Johnson & Johnson, Coca-Cola, purchased in 1985 when Michael was 6 years old. The last statement was dated February 2023, 1 month before Harold died. Current value, $87,000. I sat on the floor of Harold's office holding $87,000 I didn't know I had, and I started to laugh. Not happy laughter, the kind that comes when you realize the dead husband who betrayed you for 30 years still managed to take better care of you than the living son who claimed to love you. I had money. I had 10 days. And I had a forged contract that could send Brenda to jail if I played this right. Outside, a car pulled up. Brenda's white Lexus, $45,000, financed over 7 years, co-signed by me in 2019 when her credit score was too low. She got out carrying a casserole dish. "Dinner!" she called through the closed door, her voice sugary. "I made your favorite." She hadn't made anything. That was a Stauffer's lasagna from Walmart. $6.99. I could see the store label under the aluminum foil. I didn't open the door. I waited until she gave up and left. Then I went back to the kitchen, picked up Brenda's contract, and tore it into careful, even pieces. 10 days. But I wasn't going to wait 10 days. Tomorrow I was going to fight back. The lawyer's office smelled like old cigars and expensive leather. Thomas Grayson was 72, retired from big corporate law but still took interesting cases from his home office on Washington Street. His secretary, a sharp-eyed woman named Diane, who looked like she'd seen everything, had squeezed me in at 8 a.m. Monday morning after I'd called 16 times Sunday night. "Mrs. Hayes," Grayson said, reading the forged contract through thick reading glasses. "This is fraud. Clear, prosecutable fraud. Relief hit me so hard I almost cried. Can you stop it? I can file an injunction today, but..." He paused, looking at me over his glasses. "They'll fight back. Your son has power of attorney. Even if it's been misused, a judge might see a confused elderly woman and a concerned family." "I'm not confused," I said. my voice sharper than I intended. I know that. You know that. But in court? He tapped the contract. They'll bring witnesses, character witnesses, paint a picture of declining mental state. And Mrs. Hayes, forgive me for being blunt, what happened at your anniversary party won't help. The dress, the public humiliation. Everyone had seen me crawl on the floor in my slip, crying over torn fabric. How much? I asked. To fight them? Grayson quoted me a retainer, $5,000. Court costs could run another $10,000 if they dragged it out. I wrote the check from Harold's stock account. The first time I'd touched that money, Grayson raised an eyebrow at the bank name, First National Trust, where only serious money lived, but said nothing. I'll have the injunction filed by noon, he said. But Mrs. Hayes, you need to understand. They're going to escalate. People don't commit fraud and then walk away quietly when they're caught. He was right. I got home at 10 a.m. to find the locks changed. My key didn't work. I stood on my own porch, 1847 Maple Street, where I'd lived for 48 years, unable to open my own door. A new deadbolt gleamed silver in the morning sun, mocking me. I called Michael. It rang once, then went to voicemail. I called Brenda. Same thing. I sat on the porch steps and called Grayson. They locked me out of my house. Illegal, he said immediately. That's illegal eviction. I'm calling the police right now. Don't move. Springfield police arrived 20 minutes later. Officer Martinez looked tired, like this was the fifth domestic dispute of his Monday morning. He made Michael come to the house, made him open the door, made him give me back my original key. Michael wouldn't look at me. He handed over the key like he was surrendering a weapon. Mom, he said quietly, you don't have to do this. We can work it out. You forged my signature, I said. Brenda thought she could steal my house. Officer Martinez shifted uncomfortably. Folks, I'm not a family therapist. Ma'am, you can enter your home. Sir, if you change the locks again without a court order, I'll arrest you for illegal eviction. Are we clear? Michael nodded, his face red. After they left, I went inside. The house felt violated. They'd been here, going through my things. Brenda's perfume, something expensive and cloying, hung in the air. Coffee cups in the sink. Mail opened on the kitchen table. My mail. Bills I hadn't seen. Credit card offers. A letter from the property tax assessor. They'd been monitoring everything. I went to Harold's office. The stock certificates were gone. My stomach dropped. I tore through the desk drawers. Nothing. They'd taken them. They'd taken the only leverage I had. Then I remembered. Grayson had them. I'd brought them to prove I could pay his retainer. They were safe in his office, photocopied for evidence. But Michael and Brenda didn't know that. The phone rang. Brenda, from Michael's number. You called the police on your own son, she said, her voice cold. That's low, Dorothy. Even for you. You stole my house keys. We're trying to protect you from yourself. You're not thinking clearly. That scene at the lawyer's office this morning? Grayson called us. He's concerned about your mental state. A lie. Grayson would never breach client confidentiality, but it was a good lie, designed to make me doubt myself. Stay away from my house, I said. Your house? Brenda laughed. Dorothy, let's be honest. You can't afford to keep this place. Property taxes alone are $4,200 a year. Insurance is $1,800. You make $14,000 a year at that pathetic library job. The math doesn't work. She'd been studying my finances closely. I have money, I said. Harold's life insurance? She snorted. That's gone in 2 years. And then what? You think Michael is going to keep bailing you out? Bailing me out. As if the $73,000 I'd spent on him over 30 years was a loan he'd generously provided. I found stock certificates, I said, testing her reaction. Silence. Then, what stocks? Harold's emergency fund, $87,000. I heard her breathing change. You're lying. Blue chip stocks, AT&T, Coca-Cola, Johnson & Johnson, purchased in 1985. I have the certificates. More silence. Then a click. She'd hung up. 5 minutes later, Michael called back. Mom, where are the stocks? His voice was panicked now. Somewhere safe. We need to see them, to verify they're real, to help you manage them properly. I'm managing fine. Mom, please. His voice cracked. We're drowning. I owe $67,000 in business loans. The house note is 3 months behind. Brenda's car is about to be repossessed. We thought the house sale would give us time to fix things. There it was, the truth, naked and desperate. So you decided to steal from me, I said. It's not stealing if it's family, he whispered. I hung up. That night, I didn't sleep in my bedroom. I couldn't. The bed where Harold had died, where he'd whispered his apologies, felt contaminated. Instead, I went down to the basement. The basement was unfinished. Concrete floor, exposed beams, one bare 40-watt bulb. But it was mine. No memories of Harold here. No ghosts. I pulled out the old rollaway cot I'd kept for guests who never came, found a sleeping bag in a storage box, and made a nest among the cardboard boxes of Harold's old papers. I couldn't sleep. At 2 a.m., I started going through the boxes, tax returns from 1983, union contracts, pay stubs, and underneath everything, in a shoebox labeled MISC 1990s, I found them. Letters. From Patricia to Harold, dozens of them spanning from 1994 to 2018, 24 years of letters. I opened one at random, dated July 1998. Harold, I can't keep doing this. Every time I see Dorothy, I want to scream. She has no idea how lucky she is. You, the house. Michael worshiping her like she's some kind of saint. Meanwhile, I'm stuck with Dan and his $30,000 salary and his boring stories. You said you'd leave her when Michael graduated. He graduated in May. When are you going to keep your promise? She doesn't deserve you. She never did. P. I opened another, dated December 2005. H. I saw Dorothy at Christmas dinner looking pathetic in that homemade sweater. Does she really think she's fooling anyone? Everyone knows she's broke. Everyone knows you keep the family afloat. Michael's new wife is perfect, by the way. Brenda sees through Dorothy, too. We talked at the wedding. She understands what it's like dealing with a manipulative mother-in-law. Call me. I miss you. Patricia, Brenda, and Patricia had talked. At Michael's wedding, 19 years ago. They'd been allies from the beginning. I read through every letter, my hands shaking. Patricia had always been jealous. Even as children, she'd wanted my toys, my clothes, my friends. When I married Harold, she'd cried at the wedding. Not from joy, but from envy. She'd wanted my life so badly, she'd stolen my husband for 30 years. And she'd turned my son against me in the process. The basement was freezing. I wrapped the sleeping bag around my shoulders and kept reading. One letter, dated February 2015, stopped me cold. Harold, Dorothy came crying to me today about Michael's money problems. $3,000 for some business emergency. Of course she gave it to him. She always does. You know Michael doesn't have money problems, right? He's been embezzling from his sales commissions for years. Small amounts, but steady. Brenda gambles it away online. Poker sites, mostly. I didn't tell Dorothy. Why would I? Let her keep throwing money at a bottomless pit. Maybe when she's bankrupt, you'll finally leave. P. Michael had been stealing from his own company. For years. And Patricia knew. Harold knew. They all knew. And they let me keep sending money. I read until dawn, learning the full scope of the conspiracy. Patricia had encouraged Brenda's manipulations. Harold had advised Michael on how to ask me for money without raising suspicion. They'd all sat around my kitchen table, eating meals I cooked, accepting gifts I couldn't afford, planning how to bleed me dry. At 6 a.m., I heard footsteps upstairs. They'd come back. Michael and Brenda, using the key Officer Martinez had made him return. I stayed in the basement, listening through the floor. She's not here, Michael said. Check the bedroom, Brenda replied. Footsteps overhead, doors opening, closets being searched. The stocks aren't here either, Michael said, frustrated. She must have them somewhere. We need to find them before that lawyer does something stupid. If she has $87,000, she doesn't need to sell the house. And if she doesn't sell... I know, Michael interrupted. We're finished. They searched for 20 minutes, then left. I waited another hour before coming upstairs. The house was a mess. Drawers opened, papers scattered. They'd gone through everything: my closet, my bathroom, even the kitchen cabinets. Looking for Harold's stocks. Looking for proof I had money. My phone rang. Grayson. "Good news," he said. "The injunction is approved. The sale is blocked. But Mrs. Hayes, I need to warn you. They filed a counter motion this morning. They're petitioning for emergency guardianship, claiming you're mentally incompetent to manage your affairs." My heart stopped. Can they do that? They can try. The hearing is Thursday, 3 days. They'll bring witnesses, medical opinions, character testimony. We need to be ready. 3 days to prove I wasn't crazy. 3 days to prove that the woman who'd crawled on the floor at her anniversary party, who slept in her basement, who spent all night reading her dead husband's love letters to her sister, that woman was perfectly sane. I looked around my violated house, at the mess Michael and Brenda had made searching for assets to steal, and I realized I wasn't going to win this by playing defense. I needed to go on the attack. "Mr. Grayson," I said, "how much would it cost to hire a private investigator?" There was a pause. Then, "What exactly are you looking to investigate?" "Everything," I said. "I want to know every lie they've told, every law they've broken, every secret they're hiding, and I want it before Thursday." "That's expensive. We're talking 5, maybe 10,000. I have $87,000, I said. "Use whatever you need." Another pause. Then I heard something I hadn't heard in weeks. Respect. "Mrs. Hayes," Grayson said, "I think you're going to be just fine." After I hung up, I went to the basement and packed the letters carefully back in their shoebox. Evidence, not just of Harold's betrayal, but of a conspiracy that had been running for decades. I carried the box upstairs and added it to the box with my torn dress and Harold's confession. 2 boxes now. 2 pieces of a puzzle I was finally starting to see clearly. Outside, Brenda's white Lexus drove past slowly, then circled back, watching, waiting. Let them watch. I had 3 days to destroy them, and I was just getting started. Chapter 4. The turn focus. Dorothy's cold, calculated actions. Installation of cameras. Discovery of devastating evidence. First taste of power. The investigator's name was Sarah Chen, no relation to my neighbor Mrs. Chen, though the coincidence made me smile grimly. She was 43, former police detective, now ran her own firm specializing in domestic investigations. We met at a diner 40 miles outside Springfield. I didn't want anyone seeing us together. Sarah ordered black coffee and opened a laptop. Mr. Grayson gave me the basics. "Your son and daughter-in-law are attempting financial exploitation. You want documentation for the competency hearing Thursday." "I want everything," I said. "Bank records, phone records, everything they've lied about." Sarah studied me over her coffee cup. "Mrs. Hayes, I've been doing this 20 years. I can always tell when a client wants evidence for defense versus evidence for offense. Which one are you?" I thought about the letters in my basement, about Michael and Brenda ransacking my house, about sleeping on a cot because my own bedroom felt like a crime scene. "Offense," I said. She smiled. "Good. Defense is boring." Over the next hour, Sarah laid out what she'd need. $3,200 retainer, access to any documents I had, permission to surveil Michael and Brenda's residence, their vehicles, their known associates. "Surveillance means cameras," she said. "Sometimes in places that make clients uncomfortable. Are you prepared for that?" "What kind of places?" "Your house, for one. If they're entering without permission, we need to document it. I'll install hidden cameras, small ones, professional grade, motion activated. They'll never know." The thought of watching my own son sneak through my house like a thief made me sick. But Sarah was right. I needed proof. "Do it," I said. She came to 1847 Maple Street that afternoon while I was out shopping, actually parked 3 blocks away, watching my own house through my cracked glasses like a spy in a bad movie. Sarah worked fast. 40 minutes, in and out. She called when she was clear. 3 cameras, she reported. Living room. Inside that photo frame on the mantel, the one with your son and his wife. Bedroom. Inside the smoke detector. Kitchen. Inside the clock above the fridge. All motion activated, recording to cloud storage. You can access everything from your phone. She'd hidden a camera inside the frame holding Michael and Brenda's wedding photo. The irony was so perfect I almost laughed. One more thing, Sarah added. I pulled preliminary financials. Your daughter-in-law has 17 online gambling accounts. Total losses in the last 3 years, $127,000. I felt the air leave my lungs. $127,000? Mostly poker sites, some sports betting. She's good at hiding it. Uses prepaid cards, cryptocurrency, transfers through 3 different accounts. But I found the trail. How is she covering the losses? That's the interesting part. She's not. The accounts are in collections. She's being sued by 4 different creditors. Your son probably doesn't even know. Michael didn't know his wife had gambling debts bigger than a house. But she knew he had $67,000 in business loans. They were both drowning separately, each hiding financial catastrophe from the other. There's more, Sarah said. I ran background on Michael's business. He owns Hayes Premium Sales Solutions, right? Consulting firm? That's what he told me. It's a shell company. No real clients, no real revenue. He's been reporting fake income to get loans. That's bank fraud, Mrs. Hayes. Federal crime. My son was a criminal. Not just a liar or a bad businessman, but an actual criminal committing federal fraud. And the woman, Patricia, your sister? Sarah continued. She's been receiving monthly payments from Michael. $800, regular as clockwork for 6 years. Total, $50,600. Payments for what? No notation, but if I had to guess, blackmail. She knows something he doesn't want public. I knew what she knew. She knew about the embezzlement from his sales job. She knew about Brenda's gambling. She'd known everything and used it to extract monthly payments from my son. My sister had been blackmailing my son for 6 years. The family tree of betrayal was so tangled I couldn't tell where one crime ended and another began. I need all of this documented, I said. Everything. By Wednesday. You'll have it. That night, I downloaded the camera app Sarah had installed. 3 little icons: living room, bedroom, kitchen. I clicked living room. The view from Michael and Brenda's wedding photo was crystal clear. I could see my entire living room. The brown couch where Harold used to fall asleep watching baseball, the coffee table with the crocheted doily I'd made in 1982, the mantel where I kept my few remaining family photos. At 9:47 p.m., the motion sensor activated. My front door opened. Brenda walked in, alone, using a key I didn't know she had, probably a copy she'd made before Officer Martinez forced them to return mine. She went straight to Harold's office. I watched on my phone, sitting in my basement on the cot, as my daughter-in-law systematically went through every drawer, every file, looking for the stock certificates. She was methodical, careful not to disturb things too much. She found the shoebox with Patricia's letters. I watched her open it, read 3 letters, then pull out her phone and take pictures of each one. Evidence she could use against me, probably. Proof that I'd stolen correspondence, that I was obsessed with past grievances. She put the box back, but not quite in the right place. She searched for 20 more minutes, found nothing, then left. The timestamp read 10:31 p.m., 44 minutes of breaking and entering, all recorded in high definition. I downloaded the video file and emailed it to Sarah and Grayson with the subject line, Exhibit A. The next morning, Sarah called with more findings. Brenda has a boyfriend, she said without preamble. Name's Trevor Hastings, 28 years old, personal trainer at Elite Fitness on Monroe Street. They've been together 18 months. Hotel receipts, restaurant charges on credit cards she hid from your son. She's been meeting him every Thursday afternoon. Thursday afternoon, the day Michael worked late allegedly meeting clients. Does Michael know? I asked. Not yet, but he will if you want him to. I thought about Michael on his knees in my kitchen, defending Brenda. We're drowning, he'd said. We thought the house sale would give us time, while Brenda was spending their last dollars on a 28-year-old personal trainer. Send me everything, I said. Wednesday morning, one day before the competency hearing, Sarah delivered a 3-inch binder. Bank statements, credit reports, surveillance photos, transcripts of text messages between Brenda and Trevor that made my face burn. Trevor, Miss you, baby. When you leaving the old man? Brenda. Soon as his mom dies. Inheritance money. Then we're out. Trevor. How much we talking? Brenda. House is worth $200K, plus whatever else the old bat has hidden. Could be $300K total. Trevor. Damn! Worth the wait? Brenda. You have no idea how worth it. I read that exchange 5 times, memorizing every word. My death was a financial transaction, a waiting game, worth the wait. That afternoon, I did something I hadn't done in weeks. I went shopping, real shopping, at Dillard's in the nice mall. I bought a new dress, navy blue, professional, 180s, new shoes, black pumps, 95s, new glasses, $340 for frames that actually fit my face, with lenses that weren't cracked down the middle. I also bought a leather briefcase for $120 to hold Sarah's binder. The total came to $735. I paid cash from Harold's stock account without flinching. When I got home, Brenda's Lexus was parked in my driveway. Again, I checked the camera app. She was in my kitchen this time, going through my mail on the table, opening envelopes, reading bills. I walked in through the front door. She jumped, guilty. Dorothy, I brought you dinner. She gestured to a Walmart bag on the counter. Frozen lasagna again. Get out, I said. Excuse me? Get out of my house. Now. Her face hardened. This is still technically Michael's house. The sale isn't final. But the power of attorney was revoked yesterday. I lied smoothly. By court order. You have no legal right to be here. You can't. I pulled out my phone and showed her the video from last night. Her, breaking in at 9:47 p.m., going through Harold's office, photographing letters. The color drained from her face. You can't record people without permission. That's illegal. In Illinois, I can record anything that happens in my own home. It's called single-party consent. I'd Googled it Tuesday night. This video is already with my lawyer and the police. If you enter this house again without my explicit permission, I'm filing charges for breaking and entering. She grabbed the Walmart bag. You're making a huge mistake. The only mistake I made was trusting you. She left, tires screeching. I locked the door behind her, then added the chain, a new one I'd installed myself Tuesday afternoon. Heavy duty, $37 from the hardware store. My phone buzzed. Sarah. Got the Thursday hotel reservation. Trevor and Brenda. Park Plaza. Room 412. 2 p.m. tomorrow. Do you want video? Tomorrow. The day of my competency hearing. While I was in court fighting to prove I wasn't crazy, Brenda would be in a hotel room with her boyfriend planning my death. Yes, I texted back. Get everything. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept watching the camera feeds, waiting for them to come back, but they didn't. At 3 a.m., I got up and made coffee. Real coffee, from the expensive beans I'd been saving for a special occasion. When was the last time I'd done something just because I wanted to? I sat at my kitchen table. The same table where I'd read Harold's confession, where Brenda had threatened me with forged contracts, where Michael had begged for money dozens of times over 30 years. Tomorrow, a judge would decide if I was competent to manage my own life. But tonight, I already knew the answer. I pulled out Sarah's binder and read through it again. Every lie, every crime, every betrayal, documented in black and white. The woman in the anniversary party, the one who crawled on the floor in her slip, crying over a torn dress. She was gone. In her place was someone colder, someone who installed cameras in her own house, someone who hired investigators to destroy her own son, someone who knew exactly how much revenge cost and was willing to pay it. The coffee tasted better than it had in years. At 6 a.m., my phone buzzed. Email from Grayson. Competency hearing moved to 10 a.m. per judge's request. Wear the new outfit. Bring the binder. They won't know what hit them. I smiled. Let them come. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Windowless fluorescent lights, 20 wooden chairs separated by a center aisle. Judge Catherine Miller presided. 60 years old, gray hair in a tight bun, reading glasses on a chain around her neck. I sat at the front table with Grayson. Sarah's binder lay between us, 3 inches of ammunition we hadn't fired yet. Across the aisle, Michael sat with Brenda and their lawyer, a thin man in an expensive suit who looked like he'd never lost a case he cared about. Michael wouldn't look at me. Brenda stared straight ahead, her jaw tight. Patricia sat in the gallery behind them, wearing black like she was already at my funeral. Judge Miller opened the file. "We're here on a petition for emergency guardianship. Mr. and Mrs. Hayes allege that Dorothy Hayes, age 68, is mentally incompetent to manage her financial affairs and personal care." Their lawyer stood. "Your Honor, we have extensive documentation of Mrs. Hayes's declining mental state, erratic behavior, paranoia, inability to maintain her household. I'd like to hear from Mrs. Hayes first," Judge Miller interrupted, looking at me. "Ma'am, do you understand why you're here?" I stood, smoothing my new navy dress. Through my new glasses, the courtroom was crystal clear, no cracks, no distortion. "Yes, Your Honor. I'm here because my son and daughter-in-law attempted to steal my house using a forged power of attorney, and when I fought back, they decided to have me declared incompetent so they could finish the job legally." Brenda's lawyer objected. "Your Honor, that's an outrageous accusation. Is the power of attorney in evidence?" Judge Miller asked. Grayson handed her the document. She read it, frowning. "This signature doesn't match the notary's seal date." "Mr. Grayson?" "Forensic analysis confirms forgery, Your Honor. The signature was traced from Mrs. Hayes's checks, and the notary seal is from a stamp reported stolen from Johnson County Clerk's office in 2022. Judge Miller's expression hardened. "Mr. Hayes, did you present a forged document to your mother?" Michael stood slowly. "Your Honor, we believed she wasn't thinking clearly. We thought, yes or no, Mr. Hayes?" "Yes," he whispered. "Sit down." The judge turned back to their lawyer. "You have 30 seconds to convince me why I shouldn't dismiss this petition and refer your clients for prosecution." The lawyer shuffled papers, panicking. "Your Honor, regardless of the power of attorney issue, there's significant evidence of Mrs. Hayes's mental decline. We have witnesses. Call them." They called Mrs. Chen first. My neighbor walked to the stand looking uncomfortable in a floral dress that was too tight. "Mrs. Chen," their lawyer began, "you live next door to Mrs. Hayes, correct?" "Yes." "Have you observed any concerning behavior recently?" Mrs. Chen glanced at me, then away. "She talks to herself sometimes in the backyard." "Talks to herself?" "Yes, to the roses. She tells them about her day." Someone in the gallery snickered. I felt my face burn. "Anything else?" The lawyer pressed. "She forgets to bring in her trash cans on Tuesdays." Grayson stood. "Your Honor, I'd like to cross-examine." Judge Miller nodded. Grayson approached Mrs. Chen gently. "Ma'am, did Mrs. Hayes actually tell you she talks to roses, or did someone else tell you she does?" Mrs. Chen hesitated. "Mrs. Brenda told me. She said her mother-in-law was getting confused." "Have you personally witnessed Mrs. Hayes talking to roses?" "No. And the trash cans. Do you forget to bring yours in sometimes?" Mrs. Chen smiled slightly. "Every week. No further questions." They called Michael next. He looked miserable on the stand, his hands clasped between his knees like a guilty child. "Mr. Hayes," their lawyer said, "tell the court about your mother's recent behavior." "She's been paranoid," Michael said quietly. "She installed cameras in her house. She accused my wife of stealing. She sleeps in the basement instead of her bedroom. His voice broke. "She doesn't trust her own family anymore." "Why do you think that is?" "I think grief has affected her judgment. Since my father died, she's been different. Suspicious. Angry. She wasn't like this before." Grayson stood for cross-examination. "Mr. Hayes, did your mother install cameras before or after your wife broke into her house multiple times?" Michael blinked. What?" Grayson nodded to me. I opened Sarah's binder and took out a tablet. The video was already cued. Brenda entering my house at 9:47 p.m., searching Harold's office, photographing letters. Judge Miller watched the entire 44-minute video in silence. When it ended, she looked at Brenda. "Mrs. Hayes, did you enter your mother-in-law's home without permission?" Brenda stood, her face pale. "I had a key. I was checking on her. At 10 o'clock at night? Going through her deceased husband's office. I was looking for important documents. For her own good." "Sit down." The judge turned to Michael. "Mr. Hayes, Did you know your mother sleeps in the basement because she found letters in that office? Letters from your Aunt Patricia to your father, documenting a 30-year affair? Michael's face went white. What? I pulled the shoebox from my briefcase. These letters, Your Honor. 24 years of correspondence between my late husband and my sister. They detail the affair and also document how my son was aware of it for years but never told me. I handed one letter to the bailiff. He gave it to the judge. Judge Miller read it aloud. July 1998. Harold, I can't keep doing this. You said you'd leave her when Michael graduated. He graduated in May. When are you going to keep your promise? Patricia stood up in the gallery. That's private correspondence. She had no right. Sit down or I'll hold you in contempt, Judge Miller snapped. She turned to Michael. Mr. Hayes, did you know about your father's infidelity? Michael's hands were shaking. Yes, but I didn't. I thought I was protecting her. By letting her believe a lie for decades? By supporting your aunt's affair with your father? I didn't support it. Tears ran down his face. I didn't know what to do. Grayson handed the judge another document. Your Honor, financial records show that Michael Hayes has been paying Patricia Hayes $800 per month for 6 years. Total payments, $57,600. We believe this is blackmail money, paid to keep Patricia quiet about Michael's own financial crimes. What crimes? Judge Miller asked. Bank fraud, Your Honor. Mr. Hayes operates a shell corporation reporting fake income to secure loans, federal offense. We've already referred the matter to the FBI. Michael made a sound like a wounded animal. Brenda grabbed his arm. Michael, don't say anything. Our lawyer. But Michael wasn't looking at her. He was looking at me, his face crumbling. Mom, he whispered. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Grayson wasn't finished. He handed me the tablet again. Your Honor, this morning at 2 p.m., approximately 1 hour ago, Mrs. Brenda Hayes checked into the Park Plaza Hotel, room 412, with Trevor Hastings, age 28. This is the 18th time they've met there in the past 6 months. The video played. Hotel lobby camera footage. Brenda and a young man with gym muscles and a cocky smile, holding hands, entering an elevator. The timestamp read 2:03 p.m. today, while Michael sat in this courtroom defending her. Michael turned to Brenda, his face a mask of disbelief. You said you had a doctor's appointment. I did, Brenda said quickly. It's not what it looks like. Grayson handed the judge printed text messages. These are texts between Mrs. Brenda Hayes and Mr. Hastings, discussing their plans to wait for Dorothy Hayes to die so they can access the inheritance. Quote, soon as his mom dies, inheritance money, then we're out. Judge Miller read the messages, her expression darkening with each line. Michael stood up, swaying. You said you loved me. You said we were building a life. Michael, sit down, their lawyer hissed. But Michael was past listening. He turned to Brenda, his face twisted with betrayal. How long? How long? 18 months, Brenda said coldly. The mask was gone now. No more sweetness. You want the truth? Fine. I married you because I thought you had money. Your mom had this big house. Your dad had a good job. I thought there would be something. But there's nothing. You're a loser, Michael. A fraud with fake businesses and real debts. I've been drowning with you for 19 years. The courtroom was silent. Michael sank back into his chair, his hands over his face. Judge Miller closed the file. I'm dismissing this petition. Mrs. Dorothy Hayes is clearly competent, more competent than the people trying to exploit her. Mr. and Mrs. Hayes, I'm referring your actions to the district attorney for possible fraud prosecution. You're also banned from entering Mrs. Hayes's property or contacting her without written permission. Bailiff, escort them out. Brenda grabbed her purse. This isn't over, Dorothy. You think you've won? You've just destroyed your own family. I didn't destroy it, I said quietly. You did, when you decided I was worth more dead than alive. Patricia tried to leave through the back door, but Grayson blocked her. Ms. Patricia Hayes, you're being served with a civil suit for emotional distress and conspiracy to commit fraud. Have a nice day. Her face went purple with rage. Michael hadn't moved. He sat in his chair staring at nothing, tears running down his face. I walked over to him slowly. Mom, he whispered, I didn't know. About Brenda. About any of it. You thought you could steal my house and it would be fine because you needed the money? His voice broke completely. I thought you'd understand. You always understood. You always fixed things. I fixed things because I loved you, Michael. Not because I was your bank. I know that now. I'm so sorry, Mom. For everything. For Dad. For Brenda. He sobbed openly. This 45-year-old man, my son, broken in front of everyone. Part of me wanted to comfort him. The mother in me that had spent 3 weeks working with pneumonia so he could have a car. But I wasn't that woman anymore. You have one chance, I said. 1. File for divorce. Get real help. Build a real life. And maybe someday I'll believe you've changed. Can I call you? No, I said. When you're ready, I'll know. Until then, stay away. I walked out of the courthouse into bright May sunshine. Grayson followed, carrying my briefcase. You did good in there, he said. I destroyed my family. No, you saved yourself. That night, I sat in my kitchen, in my house, with my new chain on the door, and opened a bottle of wine I'd been saving for 20 years. I poured one glass and raised it to the empty room. To freedom, I said, and I drank it alone. The video went viral on Friday. Not the courtroom footage, that was sealed. But someone at the Park Plaza Hotel had security cameras, and someone at that hotel recognized Brenda from church. By Saturday morning, the footage of Brenda and Trevor kissing in the lobby had 47,000 views on Facebook. By Sunday, it was on 3 local news sites with headlines like, Springfield Woman's Affair Exposed During Fraud Trial. I didn't share it. I didn't have to. Small towns have their own justice system. Monday morning, I got a call from Jessica, my 19-year-old granddaughter. Grandma Dorothy? Her voice was small, younger than 19. Can I come see you? She came alone without Brandon. She sat at my kitchen table, the same table where Brenda had threatened me with forged contracts, and cried for 20 minutes. I'm sorry, she kept saying. I'm so sorry for laughing. At the party, when Mom ripped your dress, I didn't understand. She told us she said you were losing your mind and we needed to play along. Did you believe her? I asked. Jessica wiped her eyes with her sleeve. I wanted to. It was easier than believing Mom was lying. But Grandma, I saw the court documents online. The fraud, the affair, everything. She looked at me with Harold's pale blue eyes. How did you survive this? I stopped trying to fix everyone else's problems, I said, and I started protecting myself. Dad's moving out. Mom's losing the house. She's been served with divorce papers and 3 lawsuits from credit card companies. She's been calling me screaming that it's all your fault. Is it? Jessica was quiet for a long moment. No, she did this to herself. But Grandma, her voice cracked. What happens to us? Brandon and me? If Dad loses everything, if Mom goes to jail, your father's not losing everything. He's losing the lies. There's a difference. I poured her tea in one of the world's best mother-in-law cups Brenda had given me. The irony wasn't lost on Jessica. She almost smiled. Can I ask you something? She said. Why did you keep those cups? To remember that words mean nothing without actions. Your mother gave me these cups while planning to steal my house. I keep them as a reminder not to trust pretty words. Jessica held the cup carefully, like it might bite her. Dad wants to see you. He's been calling everyone, trying to find out if you'd talk to him. He filed for divorce 2 days after the hearing. He's living in a studio apartment on Lincoln Street, working construction with his high school friend Tommy. Construction? Michael, who'd spent 19 years pretending to run a consulting firm, was actually working? He leaves at 5 a.m. every day. Comes home covered in dirt. Last week, he came to see me at college and he had blisters on his hands. Real blisters, Grandma. He's never had those before. Did he send you here to tell me this? No, Jessica said quickly. He doesn't know I'm here. But Grandma, I think he's really trying. For the first time, maybe ever. After Jessica left, I sat with my tea and thought about Michael. About the boy who'd taken his first steps in my living room. Who'd cried in my arms when his goldfish died. Who'd hugged me tight on his first day of kindergarten. That boy was still in there somewhere. but he'd been buried under 30 years of lies and manipulation, and easy money. Maybe working construction would dig him out. That afternoon, I drove to the Recomeso shelter. Recomeso, women betrayed by families, the charity I'd donated my house to. Except I hadn't actually donated the house. That was the lie I'd told Brenda in court. The truth was more complicated. I'd transferred the deed into a trust, the Dorothy Hayes family trust, with specific conditions. The house would go to Michael when I died, but only if he met certain requirements: 5 years of honest employment, completion of financial counseling, no criminal convictions, and written testimony from 3 character witnesses who weren't family. If he failed, the house went to the shelter. It was a test, a long one, maybe an impossible one. But it was also a door left open. I met with the shelter director, a woman named Caroline who'd survived her own family betrayal 15 years ago. We toured the facility: 12 beds, a communal kitchen, a playroom for children. Women who'd been financially abused by husbands, children, parents. Women who'd lost everything and were rebuilding. "Your donation funded our expansion," Caroline said, showing me the new wing. 6 more beds, a legal aid office, a financial literacy program. "You've changed lives, Dorothy." I thought about the $87,000 from Harold's stocks. I'd spent $18,200 on lawyers and investigators. The remaining $68,800 had gone here, to this shelter. Harold had betrayed me for 30 years, but his money was saving women he'd never met. There was poetry in that, I supposed. 3 months later, on a Tuesday evening in August, I was watering my yellow roses when a truck pulled into the driveway. Michael got out, wearing dirty jeans and a construction company t-shirt. His face was tanned, his arms muscular in a way they'd never been when he sat in fake offices making fake sales calls. He walked up slowly, stopping 10 feet away. Respectful distance. "Mom," he said, "I'm not here to ask for anything. I wanted you to know I filed the divorce. It's final in 2 weeks. I'm working for Tommy's company full-time, 60 hours a week. I'm paying back the business loans, $800 a month. It'll take 7 years, but I'm doing it." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you told me when I was ready you'd know. I don't know if I'm ready, but I'm trying, and I wanted you to see that." He pulled something from his truck, a small wooden box, beautifully carved. "I made this. In Tommy's workshop. It's basswood. Took me 4 weeks." He set it on the porch steps and backed away. I opened it. Inside was a single piece of paper, folded carefully. A check, made out to me, for $127,300. "That's everything," Michael said. "Everything you spent on me over 30 years. I calculated it from old bank statements and receipts you'd saved. It's going to take me 15 years to pay you back, but that's the first payment. $3,000. From my own work. No loans, no lies." My hands shook holding the check. "I don't expect forgiveness," he continued. "I don't expect anything. But I wanted you to know. I finally understand what you tried to teach me, that you earn love. You don't buy it. You don't steal it. You earn it by showing up every day and doing the work." He started to leave. "Michael," I said. He turned, his eyes wet. "Have you eaten dinner?" He shook his head. "I made pot roast. There's too much for one person." His face crumpled. "Mom, one dinner," I said firmly. "That's all this is. You want more than that? You keep showing up. You keep doing the work. And maybe in a year or 2 or 5, we'll see." We ate at the kitchen table, the same table where this nightmare had started with Brenda's forged contracts. But tonight, it was just me and my son, eating pot roast in silence. He told me about construction, about learning to frame walls, pour concrete, read blueprints, about Tommy, who'd given him a chance when no one else would. I told him about the shelter, about Jessica visiting, about the yellow roses that were having their best bloom in 10 years. We didn't talk about Brenda, or Harold, or Patricia. Those ghosts could wait. When he left at 9 p.m., he hugged me carefully, like I was made of glass. "Thank you," he whispered, "for not giving up on me completely. I'm not there yet," I said, "but I haven't closed the door. That's all I can ask." After he left, I sat on the porch with my tea, watching fireflies in the backyard. The August air was warm, thick with the smell of roses and cut grass. My phone buzzed. Sarah Chen, the investigator. Brenda's criminal trial is set for October. Patricia's civil lawsuit against you was dismissed. Judge called it frivolous. Thought you'd want to know. I smiled. Inside the house, on my coffee table, sat the wooden box Michael had made. Next to it, the shoebox with my torn dress and Harold's confession letter. 2 boxes, one representing 50 years of pain, one representing the possibility of healing. I didn't know which one would win, but for the first time in my life, I was okay not knowing. I went inside, locked the door, the new lock, the new chain, and walked to Harold's office. The family photo album was on the desk, the one I'd looked at in Chapter 3. I picked up my sewing scissors, the same scissors I'd used to make the blue dress. I opened the album to a picture from Michael's wedding. All 4 of us, me, Harold, Michael, Brenda, smiling, a family. I held the scissors over Brenda's face, then I stopped. Cutting her out wouldn't change what happened. It would just be another form of erasure, like the 50 years of lies I'd lived. Instead, I took a red pen and wrote across the bottom of the photo, August 2024, the day I started choosing truth. I closed the album and put it back on the shelf. Someday, maybe I'd show it to Michael. Maybe I'd show him what family looked like when you stopped pretending. But not today. Today, I went to my bedroom, not the basement, and slept in my own bed for the first time in 4 months. And I didn't dream at all. And you? What would you do if you discovered your own family conspired to steal everything from you? Would you forgive your son like I'm trying to do? Sometimes writing liberates as much as revenge. Tell me your story in the comments. You're not alone. Have you faced family betrayal? What boundaries did you set? How did you protect yourself? Share your experience. Other women need to hear it.